Hey guys, what is going on? So we're here to talk about the 3M Open this week, but before we do that, how could we not touch on the Open Championship? It was a fantastic overall event, a lot of big names in the mix, and ultimately, much to my chagrin, but I absolutely love this kid. Colin Morikawa ended up taking it down today. So he ended up shooting a final round 66. Took down the claret jug, knocked out Louis Oosthuizen. My guy Jordan Spieth ultimately came up short. I think at the end of the day, just a couple mistakes really did him in, and Colin Morikawa ended up playing flawless. So he was a guy that I was definitely not on this week. I'll be the first to admit it. I thought that this course would play a little bit more difficult and would put a lot more emphasis in terms of around the green and being able to scramble, get up and down. Not the case, right? Weather didn't really come into play. The course as a whole didn't really play all that difficult. We had a final score of 15 under par, which is way lower than I thought it would be. So, chalk this one up as a miss, I guess, in terms of the model. But in terms of ball striking, if we kind of leaned on that historically, no doubt Colin Morikawa would have popped. But, you live, you learn, you move on to the next one. At the end of the day, though, this kid is an absolute stud, right? So he's the first player ever to win two majors in their debut. So basically, first time playing the Open Championship, took it down. First time playing the PGA last year, took it down. So he's now a two-major winner in addition to a handful of other wins. This guy's going to be around for a long time. I should never, ever be surprised again when this guy's ended up hoisting the trophy. But unfortunately, we did not jump on him this week. So I didn't have any of them in fantasy. Certainly didn't have him on the betting card. But Jordan Spieth at least gave us a run, right? So he ended up missing a 2-footer yesterday for par on his last hole. That would have been really nice to have today. He ended up going out in his first 6 holes. I think he made 2 bogeys. So if he would have at least been able to offset those a little bit with a birdie or 2, that would have been great. Because he ultimately, like in the middle holes there, he ended up, I think he was like 6 under par and like from holes 7 to 15 or something like that. So he definitely tried. He gave it his all, but ultimately just too many mistakes. But it's still awesome to see him contend. I'm a big Spieth fan. It's good to see. I just like the bounce back stories, right? So you're always gonna have struggles. You're always gonna have a grind, some tough times. But this guy battled through it, and he's still really young. He's only 27, right? So he'll be in there. He'll be in the mix, I'm sure. Hopefully, but we don't have a major until next year, so we'll have to wait and see. But I'm sure he'll continue his strong form. But Colin Morikawa, at the end of the day, took this thing down. Feel bad for Louis. He ended up finishing 3rd. The hole that really did him in was par 5. He ended up, second shot into the bunker, greenside bunker, and then flew it to the other side of the, flew it all the way over the green into the other bunker. So ended up making a bogey on that hole. Everyone else made a birdie. Spieth actually made an eagle on that hole. So that right there was the difference. So you kind of knew it was going to happen to him. Just his track record at finishing these things is not very good, but still tough to see. Poor Louis, very painful to see that again in a major for him. Brooks ended up making a run today. Rahm ended up playing really well. A couple guys, maybe not surprising, finishing in the top 10. DJ, Berger, Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland. These were all guys, maybe outside of DJ, had some of in fantasy, but ultimately didn't have Morikawa, so it didn't really matter. I had a ton of Spieth Louis lineups, so that would have been really nice to see. But anyway, it was an awesome event. Can't complain. Overall, really solid. And again, I'm a big fan of the morning golf. It's once a year you get to do that, unless you follow the European Tour. So, on to the next one, as they say. We've been close every week here, guys. We've took one down, but I think did 4 events since we started this program. We have 1 winner and 3 really close calls. So can't say that we're off too far in terms of the process. So anyway, on to the next one. So we have the 3M Open this week. This event is really fun to me. It's a birdie fest. It's also one a couple years ago at the kind of opening rendition of this thing. One of my bigger DFS paydays came from this. So it's back when Colin Morikawa actually was relatively unheard of. He was a PGA Tour rookie at the time, Matthew Wolff as well. And I ended up, and Bryson obviously was still Bryson, but he wasn't beefy Bryson at the time. And Matthew Wolff ended up winning the first rendition of this. Colin Morikawa and Bryson tied for second, and I had all of them in my main lineup. So it was a really nice week that week. I think I used Hank Labiota that week too, which is kind of crazy. So you guys can say I'm one of the early adopters of one Hank Labiota. He played really well that week too. So anyway, I really like this event. It's a birdie fest for sure. It's held at TPC Twin Cities outside of Minneapolis. It's a par 71. It's a fairly long par 71. You got a lot of par 4s that are between 450 and 500 yards. You have a lot of par 3s that are over 200 yards, but it is still a gettable course. So I think the winning score the last couple years, 20, 21 under par. So it's going to be a birdie fest. You're going to need to score. But I think skill set wise, and this is something I'll try and reflect in my model this week, I think it is really a course where bombers can get it, as evidenced by one Matthew Wolff. But you also can be a little shorter off the tee and more accurate with your mid-range and long-range iron. So this may be a week where I end up stratifying my model a little bit again to say, your bombers focus more on approach, short approach with wedges, and then your shorter hitters, kind of the bottom half of the field, who's really dialed in with the long irons. And I think that's kind of again, it's a little bit of a unique thing that I've done, and it's worked well in the past, especially in these types of events where you have a couple different skill sets. Your shorter tracks, right? You're kind of leaning on the same sorts of stats, right? But I think there is at least some variation in terms of the key stats this week in terms of what type of golfer you are. So we're going to try and reflect that. A little bit more about the course. Definitely fairways are not necessarily hard to hit, but in terms of hazards, you got a lot of water on this course. So just a couple quick pass through in terms of the featured holes. You can see there's basically water on every single hole. So you got to be accurate, and it's going to be hard for guys to go the entire week without probably dunking one, but it's going to be critical to get into the top of the leaderboard. You got to stay out of there. Especially there's water on some of the par 5s too. You got to be making birdies and eagles here, or you're going to be tailing the pack. So anyway, that's a little bit about the course. In terms of the field this week, so surprisingly, it is a little bit stronger. So looking at Fantasy National, we do have some big names in here, at least as of now. They haven't withdrawn yet. It's entirely possible that they will, but you got guys like Patrick Reed. Honestly, I'd be surprised if Louis played this one, but he is technically in the field right now. DJ's slated to tee it up. Tony Finau. So last year, again, I really like this event. I was on Tony Finau pretty heavily. He should have won this thing, but one Michael Thompson decided to take it down. So kind of a random guy wins once every 10 years. You could have that here for sure. But Tony Finau should have really won this thing. He ended up finishing third. He just, I think, had a lackluster Saturday and got past and headed into the final round and didn't do enough to get it done. So anyway, I think Tony Finau does set up well for this course. He had a good showing at the Open, especially today, this morning. He actually flew up the leaderboard with a solid Sunday round. So he sets up well for it. But outside of the Open, he hasn't really been good. So I'm not really sure what to do with him yet, but we shall see. You also got a couple other guys in here. Your ball striker extraordinaires. You got Keegan Bradley. Seamus Power, I think, had a really strong showing at the Barbasol. I'm not sure if he won or not. I know he's at the top of the board. I actually haven't checked the Barbasol standings yet, but the only PGA Tour event of the week, the Barbasol Championship. Anyway, I know he was sitting at the top. Hank Labiota has played well in 2 editions of this and is coming in really solid form, so it'll be really interesting to see where he's priced in terms of the odds and what his Draftkings price will be. My guess is it's probably going to be 8-9K, something like that. But he's definitely going to be interesting for me this week, but to figure out what to do with him. Might be a bet and fade in fantasy or something like that. Anyway, but yeah, you got Matthew Wolff coming back here. He sat out the British Open this week, so he's finished 1st and 12th in the only 2 editions of this event. So you got to like him. His skill set lines up really well here. Cam Davis played really well here last time, so he's in the field, coming off the win a couple weeks ago at the Rocket Mortgage. So, you got some big names at the top. You got some kind of young up-and-coming guys, some solid ball strikers. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing shakes out. And again, I'm sure some of these guys coming over back to the States from the Open Championship may decide to withdraw. So we'll see what happens with the field. So for that reason, it may be a good week to jump on some guys if you like the number, because if any one of these big names drops out, everyone's odds are going to drop. So you may want to be thinking about making some early bets this week. So in terms of historical conditions, the course I mentioned, it's a par 71. I believe it's about 7,400 yards. You have bent grass greens, so we're going to be looking at bent grass as kind of our preferred putting surface in terms of the putting stats in the model this week. It's a birdie fest. Really no wind, no weather, at least has popped up historically. You can see from some of the pictures, it is fairly tree lined, so that does help to mitigate some of the wind. At the end of the day, this is going to come down to ball striking and making your putts, as most birdie fests do. But like I said, I think there will be some variation in terms of where people are hitting it from, right? So if you think about it this way, your average par 4 is about 450 yards. If you can hit it 320, 330, right, you're going to have a short iron or a wedge into the green. If you're only averaging 300, right, or maybe even less on your drives, you're going to be hitting somewhere around 150, 175, and on some of these holes, maybe even 200 yards, right, for some of the longer par 5s and some of the par 3s that are a little bit longer. So again, I think it's a good week to stratify the model a little bit in terms of driving distance. Don't just look at one set of proximity stats for every single golfer, because it's probably going to vary a little bit. So again, in terms of the scorecard, you have some birdie holes, you have some short par 4s. Again, all of the par 3s except one are over 200 yards, so we're definitely going to want to take a look at that this week. There are some drivable par 4s. I think Matthew Wolff, I think it was last year, I can't remember, but I think he made 3 eagles and almost another one because there's 2 drivable par 4s, and I think he eagled 2 of the 3 par 5s or something crazy. So for the longer hitters, I think there is an advantage, but again, you still got to be hitting it, dialed it in with your irons and making your putts. In terms of key stats, again, approach is going to be the name of the game. Putting is going to be the name of the game this week. I mentioned all of the par 4s, the longer par 4s. You do have some 400 to 450. You got some longer par 5s. It is going to be a tremendous advantage if you can reach the par 5s in 2. So again, advantage to the longer hitters. You're going to be setting yourself up for a better birdie look, potentially eagles. And again, the approach shot distribution, you got a lot in this 200 plus range. But again, there are 3 par 3s that are over 200 yards. So I think really the key buckets will be like 150 to 175, 175 to 200. Again, I think this is going to be predominantly your shorter hitters. And then you'll have a lot more guys hitting in the 125 to 150, 150 to 175 from your longer hitters, right? So guys that are a little bit more of a bomber off the tee. And I don't think the fairways are too difficult to hit this week, but even if you miss, I don't think getting it out of the rough is too difficult. So again, premium a little bit for me of distance over accuracy, but at the same time, if you're hitting fairways but have a longer approach, I want to see who's able to do that. I'm not sure if anything else really stands out to me here. So I think that's pretty much it. So again, if we look at last year maybe as a one reference point, how did people get it done at the top of the leaderboard? So I mentioned Michael Thompson, your once every 10 years guy winning this event. Ultimately, Tony Finau finished in like an 80-way tie for 3rd place, but he was dialed in with the irons that week. Didn't do as much with the putter. So if he would have just putted a little better, he could have won. I feel like we say that a lot about Tony Finau, but guy just doesn't win. I don't know what it is, but anyway, you'll see most of these guys at the top of the board all gained a ton on approach. A lot of them gained with the putter, and then some of these guys a little bit more off the tee. So Charles Schwartzel finished 3rd last year. I'm assuming this is mostly hitting fairways because he's not the longest guy in the world. Same with Griot. But some of these other guys like Bo Hoag's a little bit longer. Matthew Wolff was surprising to me that he did not gain off the tee last year, but I can almost assuredly guarantee you that he did in 2019 when he won. So let's take a look at that. Let's see here. Yeah, so he gained off the tee, as did Morikawa and Bryson, albeit in slightly different ways, but they all gained a ton on approach here, and it was Bryson who really did it with the putter. So again, this was one of my favorite events. So I had Sam Burns and Wyndham Clark in my lineup that week too. So it was a really nice overall week for me in 2019 at the 3M Open. So didn't take down a big tournament. I think I finished like second or third that week, but yeah, it was a good week. So the 3M Open will always have a soft spot in my heart. So anyway, more to come on this. I'm probably going to put out a video here on Monday or Tuesday. I want to give you guys a little bit of the model. Again, I'm going to break it out into basically stratify it based on driving distance. So slightly different approach distances. Still overall strokes gain approach will be in there. Putting on bent grass greens, that'll all be in there as well. So want to try and set it up a little bit differently, a little bit more creatively this week, just to reflect the different types of golfers and types of skill sets that can be successful here. So we'll go through that. We'll also at the same time talk about bets. So we'll see how the board shakes out tomorrow in terms of who's going to be the betting favorite. My guess is it'll be DJ at the top, but where Wolf comes in, my guess is he will probably be at or near the top as well, along with Tony Finau's the other big name, Patrick Reed as well. So those guys will all probably be in that, like, my guess would be around 20-1, right? So DJ will probably be like 10, 11, 12. Reed will be probably 15. Finau will probably be 20. Wolf will be 25. Like, that's my guess is how this is going to set up. So, but we'll see what it has to show us. We'll see what their prices are in DraftKings too. Maybe we'll try and, again, because I want to get some of this content out a little bit earlier for you guys, because I think that worked well with the Open Championship this week. So at the same time, we'll go through some of my DraftKings plays, thinking about how to set up lineups. Again, got to wait for salaries to drop and get a sense of ownership, but that's the plan for me. So be on the lookout for an update probably on Tuesday, just to talk a little bit more specifically about some of the plays, some of the guys that I like and why, show you the results of my modeling, and talk about DraftKings strategy, how to set up lineups for the week. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something. Again, as always, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and we will talk soon. Thanks, guys.